Greetings fellow bronies and YouTube subscribers, this is navybrony. I've had quite a few people asking me how I do my videos, so I'm going to show some tips and techniques in case anybody wants to make some similar videos. And I won't be covering basics because a lot of the basics you can kind of find online, such as motion tracking and cropping. So what I'll mainly be doing for this video is showing you guys some advanced things to speed up your workflow and also to give you some more things to think about when you're trying to do a movie like this. So with that said, let's begin. Alright, the first thing I'll be covering is why I didn't use the rotor brush on this recent video. The rotor brush is good for, I would say, actual live footage and human characters. It does not do so well with cartoon characters. There's a lot of very sharp edges, especially with My Little Pony, and the characters, such as the tips of their hair, frequently gets dropped from the rotor brush as it's propagating, so you need to constantly keep fixing it up. And with Rainbow Dash specifically, she has so many different colors that the rotor brush ends up getting confused, and you end up spending more time trying to correct the rotor brush than it would take cropping. But after how long it took me to crop, I'm not so sure about that anymore. But anyway, so what I did was I didn't use the rotor brush. What I did was I took this 2-second clip from Suited for Success, add it to a render queue, and I basically just set it to export as a PNG sequence so I can use transparency. Then I set the folder that I was going to put it to, and I rendered it out. So next I'll show you where I rendered it out to and open up Photoshop. Alright, now we're in Photoshop. So as you can see, I've exported all these files into a folder, and just from that 3 to 5 second video there are a lot of frames exported. So as you can see, I didn't even finish all these because this was very time consuming. So I'll start with this one. Basically the first thing I do when I start off a frame like this, when I'm cropping out an image, I'll double click the layer, and that way it's unlocked. Create a new layer, and I'll fill it with something that's not in the rest of the scene, such as neon green. And then I'll set the layer, I'll set a layer mask on the layer. And from there on, I always use a size 9 fuzzy brush. It's my favorite tool to probably use for cropping. And basically, all you gotta do is just take your brush, make sure it's set to black, and just start going through, just like this. Alright, so now the rest of Rainbow Dash is cropped out with the mask around her. So the mask is still active, I haven't applied it yet. And this is where one thing I did would definitely speed up the process for a lot of people. Go to Channels, click on the mask itself, deselect the RGB channels, and then using the magic wand you can select outside the mask. Now one issue is it's not going to be selecting right onto the mask, and we left over with a little bit of stuff in between because we were using a fuzzy brush. So in order to solve that, make sure you apply the mask, go to select while it's still selected, modify, expand, and with a size 9 brush you can always use 6 pixels to expand it by, which will put it right in the middle of where the mask was. And all you gotta do is simply hit the delete key, and boom, everything's erased, except for these small segments, but I'm not gonna worry about those. You can erase those manually. So from here, now we need to clean up some of these edges. So I'm going to hold down Control, click on the layer which creates an outline around Rainbow Dash, and then from there you can apply another mask, which is basically a mask around the outline. And I usually add a little bit of calcium blur and a little bit of a levels adjustment to kind of take out the sharp edges. You don't want to overdo the levels though. So takes out a little bit of the sharp edges, then just make sure you apply that new mask, delete the background layer, and then now you've successfully got a cropped image. Save it, and then save it as the exact image that you originally used. And then all you gotta do after that is just repeat the process for 166 times. Fun times. Alright, so now we're back into After Effects, and I'm going to show you how to import that image sequence. So firstly I'm going to drag down my living room footage, and then if you go up to File, Import, File, and then you select the first image of the image sequence, it'll automatically select the rest of the ones in the image sequence. So from there you can drag it down, and ta-da, I've got a cropped character. This is where I stopped, was about right here. So let's say, alright, right there is good. I'm gonna size this down, trim my comp area. Alright, so now I've got Rainbow Dash chilling in my room, but as you can see, can't really work with this because she's floating in the middle of the room and the rest of the room is moving because the camera's moving. So now we're gonna have to actually motion track this footage. So I'm gonna temporarily hide Rainbow Dash. Now I'm gonna open up my motion tracking controls. Actually, wait, they're already there. And I'm gonna track the motion, position, rotation. I'm gonna create a new null object to attach the data to. And then for these points, I usually pick electrical plugs. They work out pretty well for tracking points. So I'm gonna size the search area a little bit. Then for my other point, I think I'll pick down here on the edge of the back of the couch. Alright, so now that I've got this, make sure my target is going to be the null object, and click the Analyze Forward button. Alright, so now we've got our motion tracking data. So now I'm going to apply both X and Y dimensions to my null object. Now you can see the null object has shown up with all the tracking data. So now all I gotta do is take the Rainbow Dash layer, select the parent as null 1, and now as you can see, Rainbow Dash will be staying in the scene, not moving around relative to the camera movement. So from here I can do some other things, like I need to size her down just a little bit, move her position over so she's resting up against the edge of the couch, and there we go. So got her successfully motion tracked in. So now I'm back into my original project, and now as you can see, things are looking a bit better. Nothing's perfect though, there's always room for improvement. But basically this is where I want to talk about some more advanced techniques, because a lot of people would have stopped right at the motion tracking and called it good usually, but you have to look at lighting in the room, shadow angles, everything like that to try and make your composition as realistic as possible. So for this room, I know I have a light from a ceiling fan over here, so I know the light should be casting down onto Rainbow Dash. As you can see, I had a little bit of a shadow from where she's standing behind the edge of the couch. As you can see, when she moves forward, she has a very subtle shadow on the wall that I added in, but overall it's not too much. What I had to do to create the light source was basically create a new light, match the color to the same kind of lighting, that soft white light in the room, and then had to create myself a camera just so I could kind of move around and figure out exactly where I was going to be putting the I have no idea what I'm doing right now. Alright, there we go. So basically, as you can see, the light is kind of relative to where the place was that I was using. Not too much, but at least a little bit. So some important things to remember for this step of kind of doing all your post-production work is you need to remember you're working with a two-dimensional character and not an actual three-dimensional model. So you have to kind of play around with the orientation, the perspective, and the scale just in order to get the right kind of lighting and shadow effects that you want. But most of the work is just looking at what you've got in your composition, where the light's coming from, where you're going to have to add lights, add shadows, and other than that, I mean, it's pretty much just a lot of busy work, pretty much. So this is the final result that I got, and basically from here, all I did was add the whole composition to a render queue, rendered it out as an AVI, and you can open it at that point at any movie editing program that you have. I use Pinnacle Studio. It sucks. It's not too bad. But yeah, probably want to use something better than Windows Movie Maker. And that's all you gotta do. So, sorry it's now a little bit more in depth. I figure anybody that wants to do a video like this would probably have the capability of searching for how to do motion tracking and stuff like that to get more advanced techniques on how to do these. So hopefully that helped a few guys out, and thanks for listening.